Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Jabroni Drive. On this week's episode, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, the WWE Draft, the Backlash, and everything else. Timmy, will this be the greatest episode of Jabroni Drive yet? I think so. What do you got to say to all the Schmidt and Lavellites out there?
Tom, everyone knows that listening to Jabroni Drive is just and when you listen to Jabroni Drive, you know that you are a Jabroni
for life. I love it.
Love it.
Jabroni Drive starts now. Woo! What an entrance and what a start to a show. We got a great show for you. We appreciate you listening here on Jabroni Drive. Remember, when you're a jabroni for life. And everything on this show has been just too sweet. The views are up, the likes are up, the shares are up, everything's up, and we can't do it without you, the listener. The Schmidt and Lavellite out there that's tuning in each week, breaking down what's going on in professional wrestling, particularly WWE. It's never been hotter, and I would like to think that me and Timmy had something to do with it. I know The Rock says he made wrestling cool again. I'm pretty sure we started before him, and it was us. It was us. We made wrestling cool again, and we're going to just keep making it cooler and cooler and cooler. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do that, if you're not already doing it, please give us that subscribe. Go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listening, we're available. Give us that subscribe, get your notifications, find a video you like, share it on X, share it on Instagram, tell your friends, tell your family. Jabroni Drive, the hottest growing wrestling show in all of professional wrestling shows. We love you. And remember, we do have a phone line. If you want to call in, leave a message about a wrestling topic, something you'd like us to talk about, please give us a call. That's 215-948-6546. 215-948-6546. Put that number in your phone. Give us a call. Man, this match was awesome. Man, this match sucked. I don't like this draft. I don't like this. Tony Khan's a piece of whatever you want to say. Leave us a message. We'll bring it up on the show. You still hate Bill Goldberg? Go ahead. You know who I'm talking to out there listening. You know who I'm talking to. And leave us a message and we'll bring it up. We'll play it on the show and we will talk about it. All right, Timmy. Enough. Let's get right into it, okay? Big week, the WWE Draft. It always coincides with the NFL Draft. And we're going to talk about right now the draft overall, our thoughts on it, likes, dislikes. Would you like to start, or would you like me to go on this?
Well, Tom, this has been a common theme, so I'll start.
Okay.
This has been a common theme for us throughout the entire time we've started this podcast. So for the last year, we've been talking about the draft, and we've been poking fun at it. And I think our motto has been make it make sense.
Yes.
And Tom, we go to this whole draft episode for SmackDown and then Raw, and we're starting to get some, almost like it had a feel that it was heading in the right direction, where we're like, oh my God, like it actually feels like meaningful. Like there seems to be some weight that comes with these picks, and like, oh my God, like, yeah, we have real GMs on different brands, and like, yeah, there's going to be weight that's carried with these picks, and
it's going to mean something.
And it totally fell flat once again.
Yeah.
Tom, and look, I don't know if they can ever really make this make sense, right? I just don't know if that's even possible because of the format and like all the predetermination in terms of the winners and storylines and all that stuff, right? Like I mean, look, they've made storylines work before, like crazy storylines. I'm sure they can figure out a way to make the draft meaningful, but like again, they failed to do it. And look, this is Triple H's first crack at it, and I thought he had the pieces in place for it really to be something that could be different. And it seemed like we just got the same old kind of thing.
Yeah, it was very much the same draft style. Like we were asking for draft rooms, we saw that. We were asking for some of like the behind the scenes, like someone gets a phone call. They had Carmelo Hayes get a phone call and he's there for his draft pick. I didn't necessarily love that video because it didn't seem like I don't know, it didn't flow very, very good for me. My big problem with the draft is not a lot of movement. It was I think a new rule where the champions are protected. So they're staying on their suggested brands, whatever brand that they're on. The undisputed champion stays on SmackDown, the heavyweight champion stays on Raw, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that maybe is my biggest gripe with the draft is that there wasn't a lot of shake up there. People's tended to stay on their own brand. Some things that were cool that we noted, obviously, Braun Strowman returns, and he is just one of those wrestlers that when he comes out, it's that wow factor, especially in person. He's such the monster among men, and he's just this ginormous beast that comes out and just can wreck shop. Pretty cool. Drew McIntyre actually signs with WWE. You mentioned he was on Pat McAfee today saying he wasn't going anywhere. Maybe our favorite wrestler going right now, but certainly one of the top wrestlers in the world. Ilya Dragunov gets drafted to Raw. The Final Testament moves to Raw. Braun Breaker moves to Raw. And I want to talk about this real quick. The number one overall pick, Jay Yeet Uso. What are your thoughts on that and why? To me, it seems to do a lot with maybe a push that they're going to do with him with all these athletes that are out. You got Roman gone, Rock's obviously gone, Seth Rollins injured. The list is CM Punk's still out. And his merch sales have been up for a long time. The Yeet t-shirts and the sunglasses, probably for the last 5 months, have been at the top of the sales, at top of the sales. So, what are your thoughts on that number one overall pick and maybe what they're doing with him?
I mean, let's go back into I mean, do you have like the draft history up, like of who was the number one pick over the course of like the last like 10 years? I mean,
I I should look. You know what? I think this is a new year for protected wrestler. The champions are protected. So the number one overall picks, well, like I think Roman was the number one pick last year, and that clearly he should be because he was the undisputed champion. He held all the titles for you know 3,000 days or whatever the hell it was.
so like, look, my point is, I don't need to know who the number one overall pick is. I just don't think it matters really at all. I like
That's a
it
good point.
because for me, if it's anything similar to any other sport, right? You're sitting there and you're drafting some of the best talent, right? The best talent that you have that has the most potential, right? And for me, like the way I see it, if I'm going most talent, like I would probably have Braun Breaker as a number one pick, right? Like he would probably be up there as number one or at least a top five pick. I would have the Creed brothers as again, you know, a top pick overall. Like these guys are up and coming talent that are just undeniable, right? Like Gunther should have been the number one overall draft pick.
Yeah, good. Like I was shocked that he wasn't taken in the first couple rounds. I was like,
Yeah,
what? Gunther?
Yeah, Gunther, Drew McIntyre should have been a number one pick. CM Punk should have been probably up there. Like,
Yeah,
like all these guys who are just legitimate talent, but like, so that's why I don't take any credence into what the WWE draft is. It is just like a farce, if you will.
right.
And it's it it really kind of, I don't know. There's hypocrisy throughout the entire year after the draft happens. Like you just see it over and over again, where it's like, oh look, he's drafted to the Raw brand, and then he ends up on SmackDown somehow, and it happens time and time again, and I don't get it. I just don't understand why they do the draft. Just have a full roster and they can transition between both shows. There's no need for a draft because it's really like you saw the ratings for it. I saw the ratings for SmackDown. They were in the shitter because no one has any interest in the draft. And the majority of that episode, I didn't see it live because I had my kids. I fast forwarded through the entire episode because all it was really draft talk,
Yeah. Yeah,
which is
and I think you're nailing it. It's the draft overall is a farce. It's a fail. They still can follow up on what we were hoping for with the separation, keep the separate. I don't think it's a bad idea in like theory that you have these two separate brands that you're only on one another, but don't have them flip flop, which you know they're gonna do. But it's like keep them separated. Our hope is that they keep them separated, and if they don't, and someone goes over to the other one, make it be a managerial, a GM move. Okay, you get him for 2 weeks up until this PLE or whatever. He's over there, or she's over here, or whatever it is. Like trade and make them make moves. So it's like, oh wow, Pierce just signed his and swapped out this, to develop a storyline.
yeah,
That's all. Just don't do it without anything being said.
we've suggested this in the past. You've
Yeah.
brought this up on numerous occasions, and I love that. I just don't. It just doesn't really hold any weight to me. Like until they really invest in what these brands are. Like they do have investment in the brands, but like if they got to stay loyal to them. Like they have, if a Raw guy is a Raw guy, you stay on the Raw. If you're SmackDown, like, and then you have these GMs, just make it realistic, more in between, right? Like all that stuff. I just wish it was just more. I just wish it was done better, and it's just not. And
Is
that
it
sucks.
possible to do it because, in a traditional draft, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, whatever, you're drafting people that are coming out of college or,
Mm.
going into the professional system where, I guess that would be kind of like your NXT
Well, yeah.
wrestler.
Well, that's the thing that I actually love about the draft is when all of a sudden they say, "Oh, from NXT," and then because it seems like,
That's a real call. That's a real draft pick,
yeah,
right?
like these wrestlers that are in NXT have no idea that they're getting called up because like we saw the videos, like Shawn Michaels comes up and hugs him like it was like a Roger Goodell moment, like right, like
Right.
so. And look, this is wrestling, so I wouldn't put it past it being manufactured, and it could be, but like these individuals seem genuinely excited about being called up. Like Dijak gets called up, and Ilya Dragunov gets called up, and it's just like me. And look, and I'm not going to steal this. I'll give credit to Dave LaGreca on Busted Open. He said something that was really interesting. Like if they did like something like a like what the NFL does, right? With the camp, like the hard knocks, right? Where like they're following around like NXT wrestlers right before the draft, right? For like a 6 week kind of build up, right, to that, and like put some put some money into it and development into that whole like piece, and then put that out. That would be something that people watch, and I totally agree with them. Like that, that would be something really cool to see. Like, hey, a wrestler that's on the verge of getting called up that has had a run in NXT and hasn't made the main roster yet. That would be interesting to see, like a day in the life of like how he goes to work every single day and how he has to fight to get to the next level. That
I
would be
love
really,
that. You get behind the scenes, you get to know them like on a more intimate level. That's
yeah,
a great idea.
yeah.
That would be awesome. And I think Paul, I'm gonna call him Paul, Triple H, I think he is um there. We talked about when we were at WrestleMania and the Monday Night Raw after, and just kind of like this new, like, everyone's cheering for each other. I feel like he's going to be open to these ideas when he hears them, and hopefully there is a bit of a change up with the draft style and how they do things. And hopefully they hold off on just putting them on whatever program back and forth, and not even like I don't want to turn on the TV in like a week or two and just see, you know, I don't know, Ilya on SmackDown and be like, why the hell is he on SmackDown? He was drafted to Raw. So one of the last wrestlers we want to talk about, and you know, a lot of he's taken a lot of uh bad PR over the years. He had a long run in kind of the main events, and was really like his career had hit a low and was sent down to NXT, and I think has had a resurgence, especially in that new tag team with Braun Breaker. They're the Wolf Dogs, and we're talking about Baron Corbin. And for him to be called up, I'm wondering, Timmy, do you think this is a mistake? Is this a good call to have him come? I like Baron Corbin more now that he was on NXT, and I thought that Wolf Dogs tag team worked well in making him very likable and kind of giving him a bit of a resurgence. And I'm concerned that they're going to call him up and it's going to be all for nothing, and just put him right back where he was.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out for him. I don't know if you remember, we talked about like him getting new branding and all that stuff a couple months ago. Yeah, when he wound up back in NXT, and I said, man, like it would be really cool. I think it would be really excellent for his character to join the Judgment Day. I felt like he would be a
Yeah.
perfect fit in the
I remember
Judgment
that.
Day.
I loved that.
And look, it never came to fruition, but he stayed down in NXT and he really built himself back up. And he's done a lot of like interviews and stuff like that. He's been on with Chris Van Vliet, kind of explaining his story, and the guy really has a respect for the business and he understands it really well. And um again, like you get a look inside of like who he actually is with these types of interviews like that you never seen before, right? Back in the day, like you didn't know who Hulk Hogan was because you just thought he was just American icon, right? He never
Right.
did, like he did these interviews on like yeah, all the late night shows, but he was as Hulk Hogan. He wasn't real, he was a character. These guys that do these interviews are real people, and you get a glimpse of like who they actually are. So I don't know. When I'm watching now Baron Corbin, I want him to succeed, right?
Me too.
And I'm pulling for him now because like I saw some of this stuff from behind the scenes. I've seen what he's done in NXT.
And
He
he's a
went
legit badass, a former NFL player, Gold Gloves boxer. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and the one thing that people love is a comeback story, and he was in the WWE. He had a great run, right? He came back down essentially to the minor leagues to re kind of tune his craft, and now he's getting another opportunity. And I think the fans will respond to that. So I'm not saying it's an automatic success, but I'm going to trust the Triple H, aka Paul, as we know him here in the
As we
podcast.
know him as Paul.
um, I'm going to trust that he has something planned for him, that he's not just going to call him up and just put him in as a singles competitor and just and have a gimmick like a Happy Corbin or whatever the bullshit. Yeah, the whole thing with the JBL, which was just failed
Oh,
miserably.
And like, what a like. I have never been a JBL guy. I've never liked JBL, and what a terrible spot to kind of put him in. I wonder, and I'm just kind of like going through my brain right now. I'm like, how would you put him somewhere? I would love to see him and KO kind of come together a little bit and kind of seem like they have each other's backs. KO's done it before. Obviously, him and Sami Zayn with their friendship, him and Chris Jericho with theirs. I feel like him and Corbin could kind of play off each other and do some things where they can elevate each other. I mean, KO's already there, but I think KO could really help Baron Corbin's career and kind of letting him be with him and kind of playing off each other, you know?
Yeah, he has a good enough personality. I mean, he showed that um
Braun Breaker.
with Braun Breaker. I just don't see it. Like I'm like kind of going through my brain to see like, look, I don't think he would fit in the Final Testament. They're like two kind of like two, you know, I don't know, like
Plus, they were drafted to Raw, Timmy, so we'll never see them on
yeah,
SmackDown
that's a good
again, you
point.
know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe he'll join the LWO. I don't know.
Baron Corbin.
Yeah. Oh my God. Santos Escobar and Baron Corbin. We'll see. I mean, it's just something that we wanted to bring up because we thought it was an interesting call up, and I would hate for them to call him up and then have nothing planned for him, and then next thing you know he's back down and like you know what I mean? Like, don't have him come up and be with JBL again. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, the worst case scenario is that he stays down in NXT for the rest of his career, right? Like, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? Like, you have to bring him up at some point and see if he can swim the fish.
Yeah. All right. So let's go now. Let's start to break down this PLE that we have this weekend from Lyon, France. And, I remember last year we weren't too high on the Backlash PLE. And it was one of the ones when we had our end of the year show that we talked about being PLE of the year. And a lot of that was due to the audience. I mean, an audience maybe like arguably the best audience of the year. There was that. There was Montreal at Elimination Chamber. There was Chicago with War Games, etc. But this PLE, I think they're really banking on that crowd in France to be hot and to elevate the PLE. Like we mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of injuries, a lot of wrestlers out. Still a great card and a lot to talk about. So I'm going to run through the card real quickly, and then we'll break down some of the matches. We've got the heavyweight championship match between Damian Priest and Jey Uso. We got Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles for the undisputed title. We got Bayley, Tiffany Stratton, and Naomi in a triple threat match for the women's undisputed title. We got the Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade Cargill for the women's tag team championship. And then we have Kevin Owens, Randy Orton versus the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, and Tamatonga. And let's start with that match, Timmy. I'm actually really looking forward to that match. We talked about last week the impact that Tamatonga has made right away, especially with the bloodline and their new story and his character and everything like that. I'm curious to see what his in-ring ability is like. He's been in New Japan for so long. I can't tell you how great he is or isn't in the ring. So this will be kind of our first look at his style and great for it to be a tag match and something that he can. Is this a tag match or just a brawl? I think it's a tag match. Whatever. But I'm interested in seeing Tamatonga and what he can offer in the ring.
Yeah, and again, like this, I don't know. I think the draft kind of gets in the way of this whole thing
Right, we
because
lost some development and storylines going
yeah,
into this.
yeah, like there's been a nice build up with those guys, right? But it hasn't really been to the point where like I knew that there was a match going to happen at Backlash with these guys. Like all of a sudden, like oh bang, they're on the card. Like what's going on, right?
Right.
like we get the behind the scenes stuff, like there was a build up to it, and yeah, there's been some interaction, right? But it just hasn't been really sustained, right? And it's a quick turnaround from WrestleMania to Backlash. But yeah, between WrestleMania, then the draft, then Backlash, it's just like bang, bang, bang. And um, look, this is really going to set the table, I think, for the balance of the summer, right? Like with this match, with the bloodline, and see where it goes, right? Is there going to be some type of interference, right? It's an international PLE, so you would expect like something pretty big to happen, right? It's essentially a global event. Um, and
We
I
get a
would hope,
new bloodline member showing up at this event.
yeah, like it,
Jacob Fatu, maybe.
yeah, it could happen. But I mean, to see the new guy in legit like wrestling action has always been something that um has always been something that I always look forward to. I remember like who was the prisoner that was a wrestler that they like he like it was years ago. It was like I think the Mountie was like wrestling him or something like that.
The Mountie. Oh man.
But he was like he was supposed to be like an escaped like deranged like prisoner, and
Oh
like
wow.
and he was like, oh, he showed up and like yeah, he was cutting these promos, and all of a sudden like he had a match. It was like at In Your House, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this dude wrestle. And it's kind of like that when you see like a new guy, like he comes out, he gives you the tease, right? He beats up a couple people, and all of a sudden, like you're like, oh, I can't wait to see him in ring. Is he gonna like kill people? This is kind of what I'm feeling about Tama Tonga. I would love this. I can't wait to see him in action in the ring. It's something to look forward to in this PLA.
I'm wondering. I can't. Like, I'm thinking about the Big Boss Man versus
It might
the
have been the Big
Mountie.
Boss Man versus this guy. I mean, he was like an escape. That was like the whole angle, like the escape prisoner.
It was a jailhouse match, it says. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And the way and you know what? It's funny that you say that because you're right on where the draft kind of takes away from these storylines. It's distraction. And I wonder if the move is to have the draft on like a separate night, kind of like the press conference they did for WrestleMania, and they said, "Oh, this is going to be on Peacock and tune in." Like, just have the draft be a separate thing. Don't put it on Raw. Don't put it on SmackDown. Have it be its own. This is Thursday night at this time. It's going to be an hour and a half long, and you're going to get the draft from the WWE. So let's move on. And this is a match, and I want to talk about. I'm not loving this combination. It's really not doing anything for me, and that's Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I it's just like they're hanging out now. Look at this. We're friends, we're badass and blah blah blah. And they're all like like emotionally it hasn't done anything for me. I thought they did a good job of teasing Jade and like holding off on using her and holding off on using her. And as of right now, she hasn't hit for me. Like she has the look, she has the appeal, but does she have the ability to make you feel something and evoke that emotion that you need in the storytelling business of professional wrestling? And this just isn't working for me with her and Bianca. Am I off on that, or are you feeling the same way? It doesn't help that they're going against Kabuki Warriors, but
No, like she's again, yeah, I brought this up last time. Like she had a couple singles matches. She's getting the Goldberg treatment where she does like two moves and then like it's done and over with. And she's formed this like friendship with um yeah, like you
Bianca and
said, Bianca
Naomi.
and Naomi, and it's like, all right. And now all of a sudden she's in a tag team match. And like it's clear what they're doing. They're certainly still protecting her. They're not letting the leash off her. Um and it's very calculated. So I get what they're doing, and I'm okay with it, right? because like they have a lot of money invested in this girl, obviously, and they want her to be a star. And they're taking it slow, and it's a clear pairing with Bianca, who's an absolute stud. She has her own
Yeah.
reality show right now. So it makes sense to kind of tie her to her. So like it's almost like a foolproof plan in my opinion. Um, but again, like the fans want more, and they're reluctant to put her out there. And I guess there's some limitations that they probably still see, and they want her to continue to work on. But like, look, you're only going to get that experience if you do it with live bullets, right? Like that's what they say. Like you have to put yourself out there. You have to do the moves. You have to get on the mic. You have to speak. Like you can't. I mean, Eric Bischoff just absolutely shit on Mercedes Monet about her mic skills. He absolutely tortured. He said, "Look, she's excellent. She's one of the best wrestlers in the ring, but like when she grabs the mic and tries to cut a promo for 4 minutes, she's awful. Like he goes like her stock goes down 10% every time she grabs a mic." And he said the WWE did a great job working around that because they didn't let her talk a ton. And that's what they're doing essentially with Jade because like look, I mean, her first couple of promos were obviously written out. She didn't fly off the cuff at all. It you could tell they're scripted, and she memorized it, and she goes out and cuts a promo, and that's it. I, it's
She's
I
going to
mean,
start to get pushback. She's good. The fans are going to start to push
yes.
against her and
Yeah,
not want her to get any type of clout or push. So maybe the future move for her is heel. She'd be
yeah,
great like a Paul Heyman girl. You know what I mean?
yeah, like having a spokesperson for yeah, that makes sense. But I'm calling it as I see it. I think this is their plan. This is what they've planned to do. That's why they kept her under rat for so long. And they're rolling her out, and they're just giving you a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a
Yeah.
taste, right? And now she's finally in her first full match, really, at a PLE. I mean, look, she did it at WrestleMania, but it wasn't really.
It was a 6-woman tag match.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Now,
now it's a
now we're.
tag team match. And
Yeah,
what's next? But you know what, Timmy, you're right on where I think having her be with Bianca, maybe they win the titles and they have a nice run, and then eventually there's a turn or a double cross there or something along the lines because I think you want to see Jade versus Bianca. You know, let's see who's they're both just these like physically as good as it gets in the WWE. So that to me seems like a great matchup.
well,
And
what they did was that when they signed her, they gambled on someone that had raw talent and that looked exceptional, and they needed to transition. So they're gonna protect their investment, right? Until they feel it's ready to go. And I think that's what I think that's what they're doing right now. And uh eventually they'll take all that tape off, and they'll let her fly. But I think they're
let
just
her
being
run
guarded.
free.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it's going to take. She was signed quite a while ago, you know. So let's see. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but hopefully we see something at this PLE that's like, wow, okay, here we go. Now, let's move on to the other women's match that someone that has grabbed it. Like I'm so impressed with Tiffany Stratton, Tiffy Time, the character, the in-ring ability, the look. She has it all, and I think she is the next big star in the women's division. And I can't. I'm excited for this match. Anytime she's on TV, I'm like, yeah, I gotta watch. Yeah, I gotta watch that. You know, and I think this match is set up to be a great match. You got Bailey, who's a veteran that um can go in the ring. Tiffany Stratton, character and in ring ability, and Naomi, great in ring ability. So I'm looking forward to this match.
Yeah, dude, she is an absolute stud.
Yeah,
And
full everything.
yeah,
Character, mic skills, the look, the in-ring. Like, I didn't think she was like super hot. And then now I'm like, wow, this chick is super hot. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
You finally come around. Yeah, it's pretty hard to ignore what she has. She is the total package. They have an absolute star in her. Again, we talked about this before, Tom. We've identified the women's division as one of the best it's ever, like the best it's ever been. I mean, there's so many women that are legit, and like there's matches. Look, there is certainly the top 8 women put on such great matches, and then there's a little bit of a drop off, right? But I think those top 8 women can really put on an excellent show, right? Like they can carry a lot of
Absolutely.
matches. Um, but like, dude, she is legit. I am surprised that they went triple threat with this with Bailey because like Tiffany is getting a push right now where Bailey has just been crowned champ, and you would expect that run to go for a little bit
Right.
after what happened with Io Sky. Like, I mean, that was just an absolute abomination. So, um, it'll be interesting to see how this match plays out. But I like her being in the main event. I like her getting exposed that way. I like Naomi being in the main event too, as well, because she deserves it. She is Look, she came in highly touted, and I think she has the skills too as well. To be, in that conversation. Like there's and look, we're missing Charlotte, we're missing Mommy. Like these it's really awesome to have a women's division this with a plethora of talent like the WWE has.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that match. And yeah, I think you're right. I like as much as I love Tiffany Stratton, I would love to see the belt on her, but you can't give Bailey this thing and then just take it off of her this quickly, I don't think. It would be hard for me to believe that they're gonna exchange the belt that quickly after the long runs that they've had over the last couple of years. All right, so let's get to the men's heavyweight championship match. The cash in, one of the best cash ins of all time. Damian Priest cash in at WrestleMania. We were there, we saw it. Heavyweight champion now going against the number one contender, Jey Uso, who earned that title shot the night after WrestleMania. Um, his first title defense at a PLE, and kind of similar to what we were just saying about Bailey, I can't imagine that they're going to give him this moment and then just take it away right away. Oh, you're shaking your head. What do you think? Is this
This,
yeet time? Is Jey Uso get the win?
this is the turn. This
This
is when Priest finally separates from the Judgment Day.
Wow. Right here, right now, in Lyon, France. This is when he's going to decide. Now, do you think like Judgment Day comes out to help and they accidentally screw him and then he loses his mind, or he
I don't know. I have no prediction on how. I just feel like it just isn't time for separation here. And it's weird because, like, look, him retaining the title and being separate from the Judgment Day makes more sense. Um, but I don't know. It just feels like a time for these guys to kind of split because it just doesn't feel like it works with Damian Priest right now. I mean he's been doing better with his promos and stuff like that, but like they're still kind of I just and like with mommy being gone, I don't know. It just feels like a time. It feels like a time for it to separate, and I feel like Jey Uso wins this title, and I feel like there's a little bit of a fallout with. I'm not saying it happens that night, like
right?
where like it's just an absolute like decimation, and like I just feel like this is when the crack starts to really take effect.
Yeah, it really starts to get a divide and like the water really starts shooting out of the dam. So I that's interesting. And we're talking about this match. I like I said, I don't think that now's the time for him to lose, and I don't think you're saying he's going to lose the title, but I totally see something having developing that story with his rift that's been going on for quite some time with the Judgment Day, you know. One thing that I do want to talk about is the women's Raw, the heavyweight championship. Mommy now, or the man, the champion now, Becky Lynch, and her feud with Liv Morgan. Seems like that match is gonna be. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but it could be possibly at the Backlash PLE. But it's gonna be happening sooner or later. What I want to talk about is the behind the scenes footage when you're interviewing someone, and in the back you see Liv Morgan walk out of a room, and then 10 seconds later, 15 seconds later, out comes that rascal Dirty Dom from the same door, same room. Was this planned? Everything is planned. And is this going to be how they're going to do this? Where is Dirty Dom just a dirty dog? That's just,
What does it mean now? I don't get it. Like, what does that do?
it
Like,
insinuates that, I guess cheating, or, he's with another girl and he's not, being faithful to mommy.
so, but what I'm saying is like, so where does that push? Because she's going to be off TV for a while, right?
Right. Well,
So
it's
what is
just something to note, I guess. It's an interesting thing to note that maybe when mommy comes, because Dom's injured too.
long time story? It's
Long-term storytelling.
long term storytelling.
Well, just something to note, and we've talked about in the past how Dom is a great heel, and something that would really, really push him into that stratosphere of heeldom is if he were to
You said this before.
betray
You did say
mommy.
this. You said this
Dude,
before. Yeah.
that would be an epic moment, something we've like never seen in the women's division of professional wrestling. If Dom were to, I don't think Liv's the girl to do it with, though. I really don't. I mean, Liv Morgan, and I'm not saying this or that, but she hasn't shown me it yet. There's the top tier talent. There's the mommies. There's the Bianca Belairs, the Charlotte Flairs, the Becky Lynches, and maybe I'm missing a couple. And then you have Liv Morgan. I don't think she's up there with them yet,
No.
you know?
Yeah. You're spot on. Yeah.
So I don't know if she's the one to do it with, but just something to note. Dirty Dom, that dirty dog. All right. Let's get to the final match of that Backlash card, and that's your undisputed champion. His first defense of his title after finishing the story at WrestleMania against none other than AJ Styles. I liked their promo at the contract signing. I think Cody does a great job. I think this match will be awesome. Kind of a similar theme here. I just do not see the belt changing hands right
No,
now.
not
You
happening.
mentioned to me before the show started that WWE signed a wrestler, Eric Rowan, former Wyatt family member. And I'm just going to throw this. Any chance we get the Uncle Howdy debut at Lyon, France, and maybe he's going against an AJ Styles, maybe? Or
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. What's the tie there? Is there a tie there?
You know what? There's not. There's more of a tie with Randy Orton, but no, there's not really much of a tie there, So I don't know why, but I don't I like I just feel like this is gonna be a nice match, but Cody comes out on top.
Yeah, no, I think this has got that written all over it. It's still elevating AJ, putting him in that main event, right? Which keeps him relevant to the title. Um, and like, look, if he doesn't win the Universal title, like he can also, yeah, move into the direction of the World Heavyweight or the US title. He's still a top tier talent that you want to see do well. I just Cody Rhodes just has so much momentum. You're not going to take that belt off him right now.
No, can't take it off him. So we'll be tuning in. I'm excited for this PLE, and I'm hoping the audience is something that is one we remember for the rest of the year. I feel like the audience can make or break an event, and this is their chance to show. They don't get a show that often in France, and so let's see what they have. They don't. This is their chance. They don't get a show often in France. It's their turn to dance, and it's not by happenstance. Or I'm trying to, listen to what I say, or you will pay. Just may go eat some hay. No, mind a bit. All right. This is going to bring us to our last topic of the night, and I just want to talk about um, AEW a little bit and the owner. Tony Khan this past weekend making some comments. He's on he he was getting ridiculed for the spot where, he takes the Meltzer driver from the Young Bucks, but then he shows up at the NFL draft and he's got the neck brace on, and it was like I thought to myself, like, all right, that's a decent move. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
to wear
sure.
the neck. I kind of respected that. But when he's in his interview, is he's talking about how he's one company and the other company is basically the
Harvey
Jeffrey Harvey
Harvey Weinstein.
Weinstein of professional wrestling. It to me that's just a terrible take and a terrible thing to say and just kind of, cringe. More cringe from AEW, and I just feel like it's something that it's pathetic, really, you know?
Well, Tom, it's strange that how he's taking this approach, right? So if you outline what has happened now with AEW, they chose to air the footage of, was it Double or Nothing or whatever that show
Oh
was?
yeah, they took what the All In maybe, and
All in from CM Punk, and they aired
yeah.
that footage, right? And there was all sorts of backlash from that, and I think we documented a little bit of that on our show. And it turned out to be just an absolute failure for AEW. And then it led to now they're actually feeding into that as like a storyline where like they did that on purpose just to, like create Tony Khan as this like terrible CEO. Now he's playing a character almost like Vince McMahon played like back in the day, like as, yeah, the guy that just meddled into the wrestling too much, right? And they have the Young Bucks as these guys that are anti-establishment, and they beat the shit out
They're like
of
a couple of degenerates, you
yeah,
know?
it just doesn't really look. They're trying to build a storyline, which I give them credit for trying to attempt. It just, for me, it's not working. Um, I've seen a lot of other podcasts and people that, do wrestling that say like, oh, it was some of the best things, some of the best storytelling that AEW has done, but I just don't see it. I don't see it like that at all. It just feels like almost like a copycat type of like move on behalf of AEW to really try, like that's strange. The guy that runs the company is now all of a sudden in the ring, and
Yeah. He
it's
said he
just
would never do that. You know
yeah.
what's funny is AEW ironically got what they wished for. It's a common saying, be careful what you wish for. Back when AEW started, it was this alternative brand, and people were sick and tired of the Vince McMahon WWE. Very similar to the 90s when you got all these goofy characters and these storylines, the belts changing hands a ton. There's no real like, great moments, and that long-term storytelling was out the window. Well, people wanted an alternative. They wanted something that was more adult, more edgy. They wanted more professional wrestling. They wanted more storylines. And AEW was that alternative, and they were doing it with Cody Rhodes at the helm and the Young Bucks and Adam Hangman Page and Jericho and yada, yada, yada. Well, Cody leaves. Triple H, as we know, Paul, takes over. And guess what? the wrestling fan got what they wanted. And WWE started to go into the long-term storytelling, the more edgy now content. They've got the booking, the titles aren't hang long, the goofy characters besides our boy Ivar. It's just they've adjusted and now are giving what the fan was looking for with that alternative. And now AEW is screwed because it's like, shoot, WWE is doing everything that we've been asking for, and now we don't need the alternative that is basically the lesser version. And so they're trying to do anything to like, look at us, please, look at us. And it's coming off, pathetic, really.
Yeah, and Tom, that's the perfect time for another AEW chant. We fucked up. We fucked up. We fucked up. We
Yeah.
fucked up.
Yeah, right. And it just remember at that last pay-per-view, the this is wrestling. Yeah, this is wrestling. Well, this is
Tom,
wrestling. You got the owner now taking a Meltzer driver and talking about Harvey Weinstein on ESPN.
last two little things of note that I want to bring up before we sign off here, and I think that people should pay attention to is so after the draft, right? There's a couple different signings that happened off air, and two ones that I want to point out. Number one, the Alpha Academy stays on Raw. And also at the end, off the air, the Creed brothers were also drafted to Raw. So something
Mm,
of note that you need to keep your eye on because that's something that was teased a little bit. So it seems like that alignment can happen with
that's
Chad
right.
Gable and the Creed brothers. And then the one big thing that everyone keeps on talking about is Imperium, our boy Gunther, and now Ilya Dragunov on the same brand, which in my opinion, I've said that Ilya would be great to join Imperium. I think he would be a nice addition, especially with the kick out of Vinci.
Right.
Um,
Vinci now on SmackDown.
but him and Gunther apparently have had incredible matches in NXT Europe. Um, 5-star matches from our boy, the Meltzer driver. And
Surprised he didn't get to 6.5 with them.
yeah, and it could spell for some excellent matches over the course of the next year until next year's draft.
Yep. And that would be an incredible storyline moving forward if Gunther's next match out comes Ilya and somehow helps out, or if there's a mystery new member of Imperium and it's Ilya Dragunov, and that would just be great, and that faction would be moving forward with arguably the best in the business. So keep note, like Timmy said, Creed Brothers, Alpha Academy still on Raw, Ilya joining Raw. Now there's an opening Imperium. Who knows what'll happen? We know what'll happen. New episodes every week of Jabroni Drive, the hottest growing wrestling show in all wrestling shows. Remember, if you'd like to call and be on the show, that's 215-948-6546. Put the number in your phone, 215-948-OK-GO, 215-948-6546. Anything wrestling you want to talk about, whether it's a match, whether it's a PLE, a company, a gripe you have with some storytelling, whatever it is, let us know. We will play it on the air and we will respond. Give us that follow, give us that subscribe. New episodes every week available on all podcast platforms and YouTube. Timmy, what do you got to say to all the Schmidt and Lavellites before we sign off?
Tom, everyone knows when you're a jabroni, you're a jabroni.
Jabroni for life. And that is just too sweet. Until next week, my name's Tom Lavelle. For Timothy Schmidt, we love you. Peace.